توكل على الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وبه نؤمن ونستعين به وإليه توكلنا، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. أما بعد. This is the sixth. Alhamdulillah, and we praise Allah. Sixth sitting with a famous book, Sifat al-Salat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. من تكبيرها إلى تسليمها كأنك تراها، تعلق الإمام المجدد المحدث الفقيه وهو إمام أبي عبد الرحمن محمد نصر الدين الألباني رحمه الله تعالى، ونسأل الله أن يسكنه الجنة في الفردوس الأعلى، وأن يجزيه عن الإسلام والمسلمين، ويغفر له ذنوبه ويكفر عن سيئاته سبحانه وتعالى الغفور الرحيم. Now, we ask Allah Almighty, the Sublime, to bless the Shaikh for that which he contributed to Islam, to give him high station, high place in the Jannah for those, forgive him for his shortcomings, forgive him for his mistakes, and make what he left beneficial for the Muslims and Islam. I remember the Shaykh, as we start, we mentioned this at the beginning of the introduction, talking about the life of the Shaykh, how some people say the Shaykh, he didn't have any teachers. Ta'ana anhu bidhalik. They slander him and defame him like this, to say he didn't have any shuyukh, because there's a principle in the religion that you have to have a teacher. I often make the statement, brothers get mad sometimes, so I don't respect self-taught individuals. We used to be boasting up, I normally don't mention names, won't mention names this time, we used to be boasting up to more quick. It's not an issue of who has a good speech. Some people gifted more than others, huh? It's not an issue of who can read the best. Fine, they read better than me. أخي ولكن شخص كما قلنا ما عنده يعني إمام ولا شيخ. أخي علمه له بس. They said his knowledge is only for him. The one who doesn't have a sheikh, an imam, a teacher. I'm going to say, well, he said with Abu Uwais, rahimahullah. لا يكون إماما على ذلك. That's not enough to make you imam, sheikh, student, all the Kuwait. We have many examples. Now the people, they say, well, we go on Hajj and Umrah, we set with the ulama. Okay, that's enough to make you sheikh. Go to ilm. Then why Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala said, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. Those verily from Allah's servants that fear Allah. Fear Allah here means they have knowledge. The knowledge helps them to do what's right. The knowledge is what they use to obey Allah. Allah said, these are the ulama. And He used the word al-ulama'u. Allah wasn't fu'ala'u, which shows a lot of knowledge. You look at this wasn't ulama'u, ala fu'ala'u. This verb pattern wasn't huna min awzan af'al. It signifies a whole lot of something. Like, yani julasa'u, And you sitting with a person a lot, the Prophet said, you're in a salad soup. That means you're with that person a large percentage, not every now and then. Juhala'u. Not just ignorant, very ignorant. I need 90% ignorance, for example. For the la'u. Not you good sometime, you bad sometime, 50-50. No, for the la'u, you have a lot of virtue. 90%, 87%. For the ma'u, a lot of knowledge. So to show you why we struggle so much, because we don't have no knowledge or we have very little. It takes a lot of knowledge to get to the issue of khashya, fear in Allah, because of something you know. And that's why it's imperative to keep seeking it, not to stop seeking it. That's why it's important to keep going over that which يجدد إيمان في قلوبنا, to renew the iman in a person's heart. Why? Because if you want to be a person of khashya, you need a lot of knowledge. And that shows you how delicate the heart is. The situation of the heart is serious. Only takes a little bit of evil to corrupt it, but a lot of knowledge to fix it. Allah help us. What made me get to this point? Because it said, likewise, Shaykh al-Albani, he didn't have no shuyukh, he self-taught, he read books in the library in Damascus. Man, his first teacher was his father. His father was a faqih, alim. Can't be a faqih without having knowledge. Mufti. Not like our sidewalk muftis. Someone just running his mouth on the corner. Real mufti in the government there. Had teachers like Ali Pampawi, Allahumma big alim, faqih, qadi, متخرجين أزهر, alim kabir, akbar, Kal Yusuf Qurdal, and these people, big alim. We're not talking about the mistakes of Yusuf al-Qurdal, it's another issue. The Shaykh wrote a book, Shaykh al-Muqbil. Yusuf al-Qurdal, Delu Akelbi Hamli. He's called him out. I can tell you what that translates, but Shaykh al-Albani had teachers, alhamdulillah, many. Ulama said we named about 5 of them at the beginning of the introduction. But the point, we're talking about the Shaykh, the issue of seeking ilm and making mistakes and being human. The Shaykh was praised overboard before this talk about Salah. And the Shaykh, the first thing he did was clarify, that person went too far, and the Shaykh started to cry. He was a humble man. And he said the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma la tu'akhidni bima yukullu. Don't hold me accountable for what they say. Because if you say that person's alim kabir, guess what? Allah might hold him accountable if he feels good inside. Yeah, I'm a big alim, you're right. Now I'm not going to hold you accountable like that. You know the responsibility of being a big alim? Somebody say this person is zeki, kamrum munura. That means he's clean, he don't do nothing. You feel good inside, praise you. Yeah, that's right. Allah's gonna hold you accountable for that. I mean, you gotta match that now for real. So shaking it like praise. We're overboard, man, all of this stuff. But the Shaykh said, Allahumma la tu'akhidni bima yakulun. Do not take me accountable. Do not blame me, hold me accountable. Don't take me to task for what they say about me. وَجَعَلْنِي خَيْرًا مِمَّا يَظُنُّونَ, and make me better than what they think of me. وَاغْفِرْ لِي لِمَا لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, and forgive me for what they don't know about me. Imaam ماذا al-Albani. Sahih. And this is just the akhlaq of the people of ilm. Doesn't mean the Shaykh was drinking wine. Forgive me for what they don't know about me. I gamble at night. They don't know that, like us. I get drunk. I dance with the women. I trick with whores. No, the Shaykh didn't mean that. Just we all have some, blunders, mistakes, where people sometimes want us to be spotless. كالملائكة, like the angels. So this, the Imam al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala, he didn't like the praise, but we have to say he was the Shaykh of Islam of his time. He revived the Sunnah. Like people want to sing the Sunnah and Dalil and, Hadith Sahih, Da'if, not like they are now. He revived that, alhamdulillah. So we ask Allah to, Allah, let it reach the Shaykh. Every time somebody mentions his name, every time somebody read his book, every time somebody review his book, every time somebody teach from it, may Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala give him al-ba'af and kathira min al-ajr, give him multiplications of ajr. Amen. Wa naj'alna ahlu salah, make us the people of salah. Wa naj'alna min ماذا محبين للصلاة, make us those who have a love for salah. وجعلنا من ماذا الصادقين, make us from the truth. والمتقين, make us from the pious. والصابرين, make us from the patient. والشاكرين, make us from the great. The last place we left off, we finished Al-Faatihah wa ماذا وكلها, Faatihah and why it is a pillar. And the Prophet ﷺ talked about that. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this, and then inshallah ta'ala we're going to continue from the point which is after that. Reading the salat, you read it out loud, audible or inaudible like this. The Al-Faatihah and the salat, that is, how should your recitation be? هكذا؟
إن شاء الله.
تفضلوا.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. نسخ القراءة وراء الإمام في الجهرية، وكان قد أجاز للمؤتمين أن يقرأوا بها وراء الإمام في الصلاة الجهرية، حيث كان في صلاة الفجر فقرأ فتقلت عليه القراءة، فلما فرغ قال: لعلكم تقرؤون خلف إمامكم. قلنا: نعم هدى يا رسول الله. قال: لا تفعلوا إلا أن يقرأ أحدكم بفاتحة الكتاب فإنه لا صلاة لمن لم يقرأ بها.
Now, هنا the Shaikh brings the chapter. First he brought Al-Faatihah, Ukkasha. Reading Al-Faatihah and it being a pillar of the Salah. Because the topic of the book is what? Salah. So from the Salah, we mentioned again, you have conditions, shurut. And conditions are everything that you must do before you get in Salah. Conditions are things you must do before you get in the Salah. Name something you have to do before you get in Salah, in order for the Salah to be accepted by Allah. Wudu, barakallahu feek. Wudu, you said?
Wudu.
Okay, wudu. So if you eat it sound like you said wudu. Wudu. Alhamdulillah.
No problem.
But in the Pakistanis in India, they said voodoo. They mean voodoo, because they have the accent. Do you make voodoo? Not bad. Something else. Ghusl? Okay, all right. So if we take those two things, that's one category. That rafa al-hadath. Rafa mada means to remove rafa. Hadath, the impurities. So they have a major and minor category. Major, when you release sperm, male or female, that's ghusl. Minor, when you go to the bathroom, when you break wind, when you go to sleep.
Not to do more.
So the point is that you said wudu, he said ghusl, but that's one category. That's one condition. Your body must be free from impurities before you pray. Now, tell you about the what's another one?
قبلة توجه للقبلة.
أيوة بارك الله فيكم. هذا أول شيء ذكر الشيخ في كتابه وجه إلى القبلة أو إلى الكعبة, to face the Qibla, to pray in the direction of the Kaaba. And we mentioned this before. Sometimes Allah after the brother, if your shoulder is like this, the brother move your shoulder, kick after your toe is pointed. The further you're away from Mecca, the harder it is to face the Kaaba. Why? Because you're too far away. So they say, yani, approximate. You try it, a roundabout. It's different if I'm turned like this. Obviously speaking, I'm turned too far. But if the Qibla is supposed to be somewhere in this direction, I'm a little bit like this, I'm a little bit like that. Allah, you're still facing the Qibla. And the ulama, they mention that. But when you're in front of the Kaaba, then that's different because you're able to face it, because the closer you are to it, the easier it is to face it. The further away, the harder it is to face it. So if Allah made you face it, the further away it will be impossible. It will be an injustice. So you're facing towards the Qibla, in the direction of. That means approximate and not exact. So this is another thing you must do before you have to start to pray. So when you make purification, face the Qibla, give me two more things.
Niyya.
Barakallahu feekum, mashallah. Niyya. And we said last time that some people still believe niyya, as you say on your tongue, all I intend to pray for a rakat on this 8th day of Rajab 1442 at 2 o'clock p.m. Allah Akbar. That's not niyya. Allah wa ta'ala mentioned when tukfu out to buduhu mada. Allah. If you say it or you conceal it, who knows it? Allah. So this is niyya, and niyya is the word they say intention. It also means qasd. If you use different Arabic words, it gives you a broader meaning. You say, oh, now I see. Sometimes we just say niyya and it's kind of cloudy because they say intention. But qasd in Arabic also means your aim, your goal, what you're trying to achieve. You say azima, a decision. So all of this means niyya. So niyya, Imam, no, we said like Allah said, as it relates to niyya, He said mahalaha al-qalb. The place for it is in the heart, not in the tongue. Some people, they try to say, we mentioned this before, Imam al-Shafi'i said, when you go make hajj or umrah, you say labbaika. Labbaika means I am here to serve you. So who do you go to worship when you make hajj? Allah. Okay. Listen, you'd be surprised. Some people might not know, and some people don't know. Yeah. So thank Allah for the little knowledge we have. When you go to make hajj, you're going to worship Allah, not the little black box. You're not going to. No, they call the black box the Kaaba. They think it's a black box from a picture. It's not a box.
No, excuse. That's from
You're on the dark side, it's mine. Because some non-Muslims say, y'all worship that box. You go around the Kaaba. The black stone is inside on the exterior of the Kaaba. We go around, so they say, y'all worship that box. So Muslims that said that, say, yeah, we worship the box. Not worshiping the box. That's a message. We worship Allah. And also, when we talk about the issue of going there, there's something you say like shahada. Is anybody going to say shahada is a niyyah intention? When you say la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, that is considered what? Shahada. Do we call that intention too? No. This is a statement, declaration, statement of dhikr, statement of ibadah. So likewise, you say labbaika. I'm here to serve you, talking about Allah. Labbaika. The ka is talking about who you're talking to, Allah. You say hajj, a hujj. It almost translates, I'm here to make hajj. So you try to say, Imam Shafi said, see, this is the niyyah. So niyyah is on the tongue, not niyyah. And secondly, Imam Shafi, you didn't say it. They said it's in his book called Al-Um. And this is the first book of fiqh that was written in his time by him, like this. And it's 3,000 pages. Sheikh Mukbil and his committee of shuyukh, they checked the whole book from the beginning to the 3,000 Imam Shafi'i, Allahumma musta'an. Niyya. Now, so we're talking about conditions, things you must do before you enter Salat. Why? Because now you're in the Salat. And when you're in the Salat, now you have everything. It's either a rukn, it's a pillar. Like a pillar of Islam, pillar of Iman, have pillars of Salat. One of them is Faatihah. Without the pillar, you don't have that thing. Without the pillar, that thing is not whole, it's not complete. So the Faatihah, pillar of the Salah. That's why Shaikh said Al-Faatihah or Ukkasha, and its pillar, meaning it is a pillar of the Salah. Then the next chapter, and the Shaikh talked, but we covered that, but we're tying it into this chapter that we're starting today. Reading Al-Faatihah where people can't hear it. In the Salat that's not heard, and reading Al-Faatihah out loud in the Salat when it's heard. When it's not heard, meaning all of Dhuhr, all of Asr, the last rakat of Maghrib, and the last two of what?
Isha.
Al-Isha. So in other words, when you're praying behind the Imam, you shouldn't hear a person recite Al-Faatihah at that time, according to Shaykh al-Islam. Also, when the Imam is reading Al-Faatihah and you hear it, such as the 2 rakat of Fajr, such as the first 2 rakat of Maghrib, and such as the first 2 rakat of Isha, then according to Shaykh al-Albani, you should still be listening, not saying anything. Why did we go back to Al-Faatihah and not just go into the chapter of the Shaykh said it's an abrogation. Abrogation means something is abolished. Why? Because Prophet Sallam, he mentioned La Salatu liman lam yakra Fatihatil Kitab. There is no salat for the one who does not read Al-Fatihah. That's the chapter before. And that's in so many hadith. So the dilemma is, what happened? Did that change or not? This hadith that the Shaykh brought, which is in the Sunan Abi Dawood, it's also in other narrations. The Prophet ﷺ, one morning he was praying, he said, Fajr. People behind him was reading. They weren't reading real loud, but they were reading. Like sometimes you're praying, someone come in, you're praying Sunnah, he has to pray Maghrib, you hear him. He's not reading real loud, but you know he's reading. He's you can tell he's reading Quran. Somebody was doing that behind the Prophet. So after Taslim, he said, وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَقْرَؤُونَ خَلْفَ إِمَامِكُمْ. Some of you perhaps are reading behind your Imam. In fact, this means somebody is reading. But that's how he would word the thing. So one man said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. I said, I was. He said, I was reading very fast. You know. So the Prophet said, لا تفعلوا ذلك. لا تفعلوا ذلك إلا بفاتحة الكتاب. Don't read behind the Imam except for Al-Fatiha. But the man was reading something else. He already finished Al-Fatiha. He was reading something after Al-Fatiha, like you do when you pray alone or you lead the Salah. So here, when you continue, you're going to see one of the dilemmas. Shaykh al-Albani is saying that don't count no more. When you're behind the Imam and he's reading, basically listen. Even Al-Fatiha, continue reading.
ثم نهاهم عن القراءة كلها في الجهرية، وذلك حينما انصرف في صلاة جهر فيها بالقراءة، وفي رواية أنها صلاة الصبح، فقال: هل قرأ معي منكم أحدا آنفا؟ فقال رجل: نعم أنا يا رسول الله. فقال: إني أقول ما لي أنازع. قال أبو هريرة: فانتهى الناس عن القراءة مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فيما جهر فيه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بالقراءة حين سمعوا ذلك من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم.
This part
Can you just finish the? No, okay, sorry. It was.
If you in the Haram,
Oh.
you read it for Sheikh Abdul Muhsin, son of Sheikh Abdul Razak, the son of Abdul Muhsin. There's a man, he's a scholar of hadith. He's old now. He's in a wheelchair now, that's how old he is. After the doctor, we made Hajj in 2018. And I stood up, you know I can't see, and somebody just grabbed me because the wheelchair was, it was pushing the Sheikh. I would have got mowed down. The Sheikh is still teaching Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abi Dawood, and he has no book. They read the hadith from the book, the chain, the chapter, the chain, the word, and then the Sheikh will go and tell you who's in the chain, who was his father, this, that, and the third. And then he might say, stutter and say, what's next? And then they'll tell him, and then the Sheikh memory kick in, and his son is a muhaddith, young scholar like him, Sheikh Abdul Razak. This is why I came to this area. We made Umrah in 2016. We prayed Fajr in the Prophet's Masjid, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and then I told Abdul Latif, Nasallah Yashfihu Amin, from Middletown, still safe. Nasallah and Yani Yashfihu Amin, Ya Allah heal him. Nasallah Yashfihu Amin, Ya Allah heal him. It was me, him, and a brother named Abdul Qabit from Detroit. He lives in South Carolina, Sheikh Abdul Qabit. They both in their 60s, by the way, at this time. 65, 60, 4, they might have liked me saying it. They talking 8. So I said, after Salah, we're going to sit in the Sheikh Dars. I knew the Sheikh Dars which way. They said, all right, come on. I'm walking, I'm telling them where to go. The Sheikh already started the Dars, so I'm following his voice. Man, this is, subhanAllah. SubhanAllah. Can you imagine you're in the Prophet's Masjid? All of the Dars on speakers, and you got like different ulama teaching at the same time after Fajr. It just dawned on me, how could I follow the voice of the Sheikh with people talking and crowds like amazing? See, the Sheikh does keep going this way. No, go left. We did. It's louder and louder. This is the dust of the Sheikh. You can hear him now, so you know who's there. You hear the mic and you hear him. So I said, get as close as you can. Everybody who sees us looking, they know we visitors. We're not the students. We're not, from there. So they're making space for us, so we get close as we can and sit down. After the Sheikh darts, I told them, when the Sheikh finished, get up, go to the Sheikh's chair. Sheikh has a tall chair. He's got to climb in. It's up on a platform, so he's up high. Then they push the mic to him, and he's speaking, looking out in the audience. So they walk me to the Sheikh chair. By this time, the Sheikh is standing up, talking to students, and he's looking towards me, because I can hear his voice. And as I approach, I said, Salaam alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. He said, Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And Sheikh Abdul Razak, he's about, I would say about 6'6". He's tall. 6'5", 6'6", and he's tall. Handsome. I remember how he looked before I looked at the vision. So then he shakes my hand, we hug, tell him who I am, tell him I wanted to do I was in Damad, Sheikh Mukbir, blah, 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 blah. I'm an Imam. Give me some advice, for teaching and being Imam back home. So then as he finished giving me the advice, then he asked me about Abdul Latif, Abdul Wasi, and Abdul Qabit. So he said, do they speak Arabic? So of course the brothers looking at me like, what did they say? So I told them, the Sheikh said, do y'all speak Arabic? So they said, somebody said, naam, about 15 naams. naam, like this. And then the other person said, qaleel, a little bit. So the Sheikh is smiling, So he said, alamahum. Go back and teach them. That's why I came to the area. The commander of the Sheikh, the scholar, Sheikh Abdul Razak. You were sitting with Sheikh Abdul Razak, you couldn't say, well, Sheikh could I? No, he stopped you for a reason. He knows right there where you need to stop. He's got to make a point. And they do that all the time. Sheikh will think me be reading. Somebody read Sheikh will think me, and he'll just, for us, we said, Dad, he just cut him off. Like, ain't that rude? How could the Sheikh? No, but the Sheikh is, he knows, like, I need to make a point right here because if he goes too far, the people are not going to catch it. Yeah. So if I do that, please pardon me for that. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Hey, I like that thing. This part that was just read by Shaikh Islam, it's something called mudraj in hadith. Mudraj means, and there's a lot of hadith like that. Like the hadith in the Bukhari and Muslim, when you talk about wudu, and I don't know, somebody probably read it before, washing up to the shoulder. Anybody ever read that before?
No.
You read the Shaykh?
No.
No?
No, I never.
Oh.
I heard somebody.
Yeah. When you read that hadith, it appears that Abu Hurairah is saying that the Prophet washed up that far, but it wasn't the Prophet. It was Abu Hurairah telling you when he makes the wudu, because the Prophet said, Isbahu ala wudu'i, yani fil makari, wash, execute, wash, execute, wash, execute on the limb when you don't like it because it's cold. He washed up past the elbow because he wants to have that light for sure on the day of judgment rather than just stopping at the elbow. If I wash up to the bicep, I know I got the elbow. But when you read the hadith, you think the Prophet, that's one of the prophets saying it's not. That's Abu Hurairah adding his statement at the end of the hadith. Another hadith, we took 40 hadith. A hadith about a person being in the womb of his mother 40 days. After yani Shaqiyun wa Sa'idun, the people will be either wretched or happy, righteous or criminal. The rest of that is not the Prophet's statement about the qadr. A person will do a deed and the people of the Jannah. That's the narrator's statement, the second part.
Yeah.
It looks like it's the Prophet's, look like the whole hadith, but the second part is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Likewise here, the Shaykh is bringing the narration of Abu Hurairah. It's similar to the narration before this one, where the Prophet said, someone is praying behind me. The man said, yes, it was me. I was going fastly. And the Prophet said, don't do that. But in this narration, Az-Zuhri, Muhammad ibn Shihab Az-Zuhri, he was the one who said that the Prophet changed it. Don't do that, Zuhri stopped. So when you read that narration, you think that Abu Hurairah is saying, don't do that, which means he's narrated that the Prophet said, don't do that, which means the Prophet changed it, don't read anything at all, including Al-Faatihah. But if you keep reading, you're going to see the Prophet said, Illa Fatihatul Kitab, except Al-Fatihah. That's the only thing you read. And not that now you're just quiet behind the Imam. And that's why Imam al-Albani said, it's abrogated. Mansukh. But it's not. This statement is a statement of the Tabi'in. It's not the statement about Abu Hurairah who's telling what the Prophet said. And this is called Hadith Mudraj. When they narrate something, and then the Tabi says something, you think it's the Sahaba who's narrating, which is part of what the Prophet said, when it's not. Sometimes it causes confusion, and sometimes people use that, but it's not the statement of the Prophet.
وقرأوا في أنفسهم سرا فيما لا يجهر فيه الإمام.
And that part he read, he wanted to read it before, but it's just what I said. That now, they're not supposed to read anything behind the Imam. Just hold it. Don't read nothing. But it's because people think that statement was the statement of the Prophet that Abu Hurairah was narrating, and many of the ulama, when they went back and checked, they said that was the statement of Zuhri. Because the previous hadith, the Prophet clearly said, Illa Fatihatul Kitab, except the Faatihah. Yeah. And when they went to check, this is Zuhri saying, don't read at all behind the Imam, not Abu Hurairah. Because even if it was Abu Hurairah, could we take Abu Hurairah's statement over the Prophet?
No.
No. So how could it be that we would take Zuhri's statement as a tabi over the Prophet? No one. Okay.
وجعل الإنصات لقراءة الإمام من تمام الائتمام به فقال إنما جعل الإمام ليؤتم به فإذا كبر فكبروا وإذا قرأ فأنصتوا.
This part here, the Shaikh is using as further proof, rahimahullah, to tell you when you're behind the Imam, follow him. That also means just listening. Because the Prophet said, indeed I made the Imam as a person that you follow. So when he says Allahu Akbar, then you do it. And when he recites, listen. But again, that's talking about after reading Surah what? Faatihah. So you see how the Shaykh tried to use that with a narration that has Zuhri's statement in it. It looked like it's Abu Hurairah, that Abu Hurairah is quoting the Prophet, and wallah, it's a weak position. What time is that?
It's
3:10.
We study 3:30.
Yes.
So we end up doing like Shaykh Osam said anyway. Allah يبارك.
كما جعل الاستماع له مغنيا عن القراءة وراءه فقال من كان له إمام فقراءة الإمام له قراءة. هذا في الجهرية.
And they also try to use that statement of the Prophet, which is another hadith. Whoever's behind the Imam, then the Imam's recitation is sufficient for him. But again, if you take, and this is a point of hit, when you have more than one hadith and they have different words, different angles, something seems to be contradictory, if their hadith is sahih, Shaykh Muqbil used to say, ليس اختلاف في كتاب الله ولا في سنة رسول الله بل الاختلاف في عقول الناس. The Shaykh used to say there's no contradicting. Ikhtilaf here means confusion, contradiction, bumping heads. Shaykh used to say there's no contradiction in the Quran. Because sometimes you read an ayah and you know that, you say, wait, Allah says this, but Allah said that. There's no contradiction in the book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Prophet. He said, rather the contradiction is in the minds, the intellect of the people, how you perceive. So when we will have different hadith, like this case, the man, the Prophet told him, there's no salat. Here, la salat, here is la salat, yani fihi lam yakra Faatihah al-Kitab. In this hadith, the Prophet said no salat. But what's meant, there's no salat in it that you don't read al-Fatiha. So fihi is not in the wording of the Prophet. It's in the fahm. It's in the understanding. It says it's what they call masturan. It's yani mutamaran. It's to be understood. Because the Prophet said you have no salat, then that means you didn't pray. Like the man, he told him, go back. You didn't have a salat. He didn't mean the man didn't have a salat, mean your salat is not complete. So here the Prophet said no salat, meaning no salat where you don't recite al-Fatiha, that salat is not right, it's not complete. So the Prophet said that. Then you have, the Prophet said, whoever doesn't recite al-Fatiha, or khadaj, and then he said, ghayr time, explaining it's invalid because it's not complete. That's the second one. Then you have the Prophet saying, some of you are reading behind your Imam perhaps. A man said, yes. The Prophet said, don't do that. Then he didn't stop. He paused. He said, except Faatihah al-Kitab. Now you have the same narration by Abu Hurairah, and in that narration, it doesn't mention except Faatihah al-Kitab, because that was Abu Hurairah mentioned the hadith, and then Imam Zuhri, who's from the Imams of the Tabi'een, he said, don't do that, but he didn't mention the rest of the hadith. And it's possible Zuhri didn't get the full hadith. Or he understood, like Al-Albani understands, don't do no reading at all. But what do you do with those other hadith where the Prophet said, emphatically, you have to read Al-Fatiha. So it shows you work with one hadith, part of a subject matter, an issue. You got to be thorough. You got to bring everything together. Put it on the table, analyze it, and then you find a way to work with all of the text without disregarding another text. Also, this Al-Fatiha, can a person read Al-Fatiha in the same raka'ah? Can somebody read Al-Fatiha in the same raka'ah more than once? In the use.
mean for it to be, you mean just for
Just
it
can
to
they do it? Is it okay or not? Is it proper? Is it wrong? Does it nullify the salah? I'm praying now, Asr, or Maghrib. I recite Al-Fatiha twice in the same rak'ah.
Well, Allah Alam, Allah Alam.
It's the law out. That's why man. You went from that to Allah out. That.
Well, Sallu kama ra'aytum usalli. So the Prophet did Fatiha one time, and there is nothing
That's
that he
the
did.
easy way out, boy. You're a clever man. Tell you, why am I asking this? Is it because Yusuf sallallahu alayhi? Is it because just pray with the Prophet? No, it's deeper. Remember the beginning, Al-Fatiha or Ukkasha. It's a pillar. So this is a big discussion between the scholars. If a person recites Al-Fatiha twice, purposely, in one rak'ah, does it nullify his salah or is his salah good? The ulama, they differ. Some say your salah is batil because you recited Al-Fatiha twice in one rak'ah, purposely. Others said if you do it even on mistake, in one rak'ah, the salah is nullified. Imaam al-Shafi'i, he has a book called Al-Majmu', where he does a lot of fatwa. It's a big, heavy book. You gotta be a scholar to go in this book. I went in it, my head was hurt. That was close. No way. Man, it's amazing the minds they had, man. He said, there's two opinions. He said, but your salah is good. Now, why would somebody say because I read Al-Fatiha twice, purposely, in the salah, or on accident, my salah is batil? What did the Shaikh title Al-Fatiha? If you go back, he said Al-Fatiha or what? Or Ruknaha and its pillar. So what else is a rukn in the salah? Bowing, raising, making sajda. He said qiyam, standing, raising from sajda. So what happens if you make 5 sajda and it should be 4? On accident. Is your salah valid? You get taslim, walk away and you have a salah, or you have to do something? You gotta fix it. You gotta fix it. What happens if... Huh? No, what you gonna say?
I believe my understanding is you can correct it before you touch lean. You have to. Okay.
I want to know, is your salah good or not?
No.
It's not. Okay, mashallah. He said la. He's a reader. He knows. He said la. Tell you, what happens if you make more than one jalsa on mistake and you finish your salah? You're praying 4 rak'ah, which means you have how many times you sit jalsa? 4. But you lose count. Which means not only you have an extra jalsa or 2 jalsa, you have an extra prostration. Do you make taslim and walk away when your salah is good, or you need to fix it?
You need to fix it.
You need to fix it. So this is why some ulama, they said, if you recite Al-Fatiha on accident or on purpose more than once in one rak'ah, salah to qaddat, your salah is batil. Why? Because Al-Fatiha is what? Rukn. It's a pillar. Imam al-Nawawi, he said, but no. And this is the strongest opinion. The Jamhur ulama, most of the scholars took this position. They said it doesn't harm anything. Why? Because it didn't change the form of the salah. You have 2 types of pillar. You have rukn qawliyan. You have something that's a pillar that you say, and rukn madha fi'liyan, and an action that's a pillar. If you add And we're not talking about subtracting, we're only talking about adding, because you have to have all of the pillars. You can't be minus, but you can't add either. But if you minus, everybody agrees you have no salah. But what about if you add? In this case, if it's wordings that you add, then your salah is still good. Because you don't change the form of the salah. It doesn't like someone makes 5 or 6 rak'ah. It's, it's the wording that you said only. And Imam Nawawi was right, because this happened before, and the Prophet didn't tell that person that he have to go back and make the salah over, because it's only in recitation. It's not that he changed the surah, the form, the image of the salah. But your movements can change it. You make 10 sajda. Does that change how the salah looks?
Yes.
Yeah. If someone makes 8 ruku', Sami Allahu liman hamidah, Sami Allahu liman hamidah, Sami Allahu liman hamidah, 8 times, does it change the form of the salah? Yeah. But recitation doesn't change the form of the salah. Recitation doesn't change the form of the salah. Why? Because there are 2 types of pillars. The pillar that has to do with sayings, and the pillar that has to do with action. And the Faatihah is the pillar of which one? Saying and action. Saying. Saying. Now. So this is an extra benefit, but it's important to know. Because some scholars say it does, but they're wrong.
Okay.
Now.
Keep reading.
Yeah, you had a question.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I want to know, can that also add up to bid'ah? I think dalala, if I'm saying that correctly, or misguidance? Like, in other words, a person may accidentally commit another act in the performance of the salah, and then may not correct it or have corrected, but I'm saying adding, not subtracting. Can the adding be considered bid'ah?
But that's another issue. We're only talking about Faatihah. If we go into just adding, which I think is going to come, then this is like changing the form of the salah is considered bid'ah. Yes, but in fact, being read more than once doesn't fall in that category. That's
the same. It's not an act.
Yes, exactly.
وجوب القراءة في السرية. وأما في السرية فقد أقرهم على القراءة فيها. فقال جابر: كنا نقرأ في الظهر والعصر خلف الإمام في الركعتين الأوليين بفاتحة الكتاب وصورة، وفي الآخرين بفاتحة الكتاب.
So here, and we may be able to skip that and go to the next chapter. We got a lot. Basically, what the Shaikh is showing now, to pray behind the Imam when you don't hear the Imam, it's agreed upon. He's mentioning what Jabir said that he should do. When they're behind the Imam and you don't hear him, then you recite Faatihah, you recite your own surah. But the ishkal, the problem was, when you do hear the Imam, what do you do? So that's clear.
التأمين وجهر الإمام به.
التأمين وجهر الإمام به. I remember we were in Newark. I first became a Muslim in 1989-90. There's a guy, man, he had a big link here named Abdul Malik, used to fix those cars. When the Imam said, you hear him way in the back. Like, subhanAllah, what was that? Then I learned later that he was doing the subhanAllah. Woo! My goodness. This is what's called ta'meen, when you say ameen. Question. If you hear somebody reciting the Al-Faatihah and you're not praying, and they say, do you say ameen or not? You're not in salah, I'm praying, you come in, I say, I say ameen, people behind me say ameen. You're not praying, you say ameen or not? You don't know, say Allahu Alam. If you know, state your claim.
I'll say
Allahu Alam, Allah. And that. Oh, wow, the big shakes of Allahu Alam.
I'm going to say that because if you didn't.
I think, no. Just state your delil or your claim.
I'm going to say that.
Say it. Because once you state your delil, You say it. You don't have the deal, the Prophet taught us to say Allahu Akbar. But if you say, but then this is because now you shoot from the hip and you're wrong, then you might be in trouble. You get nisful ajr, some scholars said, by saying I don't know. Take it. You can say Ameen. You can. I'm reading Al-Faatihah, you hear me? I say Ameen. You're not praying. You can say Ameen. Now ask me, what's my proof?
What's your proof?
If you ain't participating in Salah,
La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah.
Allahu Akbar.
That's why I gotta bring Dalil, because this is the deal of Dalil. Somebody argue with Dalil, and it's a problem. The Prophet Sallam, you gotta remember, famous hadith. The origin of it's in Muslim, the longer version, the Muslim Imam Ahmad. The first step he said what? The second step he said what? The third step he said what? Why was he saying Ameen? Because Jibril was making dua. This will prove that if someone is reciting and he says, Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, from that point, the ghayr maghdub alayhim wala-dhalin, all of that's dua. That's why he says Ameen. So if you hear that, this part, when the Imam says Ameen, Fakulu Ameen, is not restricted to just the Salah. Because he's still the Imam. You hear him say Ameen, you get a reward. The same thing. When the person is making dua and you're under Salah, you have some people, they don't say Ameen. This was a big fitna in Buffalo. They fired the brother, he was a Hafiz. Hafiz Quran from Bangladesh. Hafiz Muhammad Chowdhury. الجهالون الذين يظنون أنهم على منهج السلف الصالح وما هم على شيء. They're ignorant, they think they're on the manhaj of the Salaf الصالح. يقولون أنا سلفي أنا سلفي أنا سلفي أنا سلفي أنا على حق أنا على حق. They kicked them out the masjid. Juhalun, ignorant. Why? He's leading salat. He says, but he doesn't say Ameen. There's a lot of narrations in this issue. There is one where the Prophet said, إِذَا قَالَ Imaam غَيْرَ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ فَقُولُوا. You all say Ameen. But he didn't say the Imam. Imam al-Shafi'i, for that reason, he said, for the Imam, sometimes you say Ameen, and sometimes you don't. Shaykh Moli used to do this in Dhamma. He Shafi'i in his step from Somalia. Others went crazy on him. Shaykh, did you see that? They won't try to gas me up. Now you study with Shaykh Mukbil. I know you know the Aqidah. He didn't say Ameen. And I'm like, is you crazy? You really think you're going to make a fitna and you're going to drag me in because you ignorant? So yes, you can say Ameen when you hear the Imam say, why? Because it's not restricted to being in the Salah. Ameen is not restricted to being in the Salah. Just as the Prophet went up to Minbar and he said Ameen to the dua of Jibril, and you're making Ameen to the dua of the Imam in Salah. It is okay inside the Salah, outside the Salah. Amma a Shia, then they take the position that it's only for the Salah. I remember one time in the Shia masjid, I didn't know. I said, I'm the only one to say Ameen. Everybody looked at me like this while they was praying. They got jambias, machine guns, pistolas. And listen, I'm from the school of Shaykh Mukbil. I'm traveling. I'm just making salat. I don't know what the deal is. And I can see back then. So I can see out the corner of my eye, you know. Feel the breathing on me. Some people talking. Ishmael, what's wrong with him? After the salat, they asked. They just looked at me. I looked at them back. But I ain't say nothing. I figured it out. I said, man, something right. Got back to the masjid and asked. They said, this is the aqeedah of the Shia. They said, don't pray in the masajid. And if you do, don't say Ameen, you'll kill you. When you say an Ameen, Allahumma musta'an, they're not going to say Ameen. And if you say it outside the salah, they believe that that's wrong. Now, outside the salah you shouldn't say it, and they don't believe that you should say it in the salah. Allah.
ثم كان صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا انتهى من قراءة الفاتحة قال آمين يجهر ويمد بها صوته.
Oh, it said the Prophet when he used to finish his recitation, he would say Ameen with yamuddu sawtahu. And he used to lengthen his voice. Yani, different recitation, like in Walsh, famous in the Bilad Shaykh Usama, this country in Morocco. Walsh. And Walsh you say Ameen. But in Hafs and Asim, you say Ameen. It's the other way around. The elongation's at the end. Hafs and Asim. That's what we hear and read all the time. That name. Ameen. But they switch it. Ameen. And sometimes it's because people came from one country and came to another country. Back home, they used to do this, and then they brought it to another country. People don't know that the rules change when it comes to a different type of recitation. But the Prophet used to elongate it. I mean, you look at it in Arabic, it's a wiggly line like a noodle. That means you hold it. And then the meen, the ya and the noon, meen. That last part of the word, meen, ya, noon, you can hold it 2 count, 4 count, 6 count. So you can say Ameen, you can say Ameen, you can say Ameen. Just like Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, 4 count. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, 6 count. 2, 4, 6. Now.
وكان يأمر المقتدين بالتأمين بعيد تأمين الإمام فيقول إذا قال الإمام غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين فقولوا آمين فإن الملائكة تقول آمين وإن الإمام يقول آمين وفي لفظ إذا أمن الإمام فأمنوا فمن وافق تأمينه تأمين الملائكة وفي لفظ آخر إذا قال أحدكم في الصلاة آمين والملائكة في السماء آمين فوافق أحدهما الآخر غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه.
Here he just read 4 narrations. The Prophet said when the Imam says Ameen, you all say Ameen. Then he said إذا قال الإمام غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين فقولوا آمين. And this Imam al-Albani he criticized. He made it that people are rushing. The Imam said, غَيْرِ مَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, and people say, Ameen, and he just said, well, he said, the rushing. But this narration, the Prophet is a call Imam, غَيْرِ مَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, فَقُولُوا Ameen. So if he said, غَيْرِ مَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, he didn't say, well, and you hear people started the Ameen before him, it's in line with this narration. Then you have the other narration that called Imam Magdubi alayhim wala daleen. And he added wala daleen, faqulu ameen. You say ameen. Then you have man wafaqa ta'minuhu, yani ta'meen imam. Whoever his imam says ameen, he says it and they coincide. You have all those narrations. And again, you have the one where the Prophet said when the Imam said, you all say it. So sometimes the Imam, he might not say it because he's practicing not to say it based on the narration. Don't think he's a person of bid'ah, he's jahil, he's ignorant, he's not on the manhaj. And when you say Ameen, if it coincides with the angels, this is the biggest part. And the angels say, Allah, forgive them. Allah, have mercy on him. Because the angels are singing it too. You just don't hear it. When the Imam is leading Salah, he said, he say Ameen, the angels say it too. Now.
وفي حديث آخر فقولوا آمين يجيبكم الله وكان يقول ما حسدتكم اليهود على شيء ما حسدتكم على السلام والتأمين خلف الإمام.
And this is a point that Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah he made. We were talking about it a couple of nights ago during the Mukbil night, which we mentioned on Friday and Saturday. Some teachers from the Imaam Mukbil. That Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah he said every deviant group, every sect in Islam outside of منهج أهل السنة, منهج السلف الصالح, those groups, Sufiya, Khawarij, Qadriya, Mu'tazila, Jahmiya, Jabriya, Ikhwan Muslimun, Hizb Tahrir, all of these groups, the Shaykh said Shia, Rafida, all of them were made up either by a Jew or a Christian. The Jew or the Christian infiltrate and drop some stuff like this, little seeds, the Muslim pick it up, now you got a sect. Here, the Shaykh, he mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ also said about ta'meen. Ta'meen means to say ameen. Just like takbir means to say Allahu Akbar, ta'meen means to say ameen. He said there's nothing more hated. There's nothing more hated by the Jews than for the believers, for you all to say Ameen. And what else? The Salam?
Salam.
Salam. After Salam. That's why you see the Shia, again, they don't say the Ameen. Why? Because the Shia is invented by the Yahudi. What's the Shia? Can min Yahudiya. Come from the Yahudi. Infiltrate. And that's why you read something, you say, wait a minute, this is Shia. The Shia believe, oh, this is kind of like the Jews. Hey, there's no coincidence. They hate when you say Ameen. It's nothing more hate than the Jews when you say Ameen and the Salam, we'll make the Salam, Assalamu alaikum. That's why the Shia, they do like this. They're cursing. When you're making the Salam, they do like this. They don't get out of the Salam by making the Taslim. They get out of Salam by doing like this. They cursing Jibreel, cursing, because when you say Salamu ala ibadillahi salihin, you're making dua that Allah make all of the righteous servants and the heavens on earth safe. From the head of the righteous servants and the heavens is Jibreel. So he comes from Jibreel. Man kana aduwwa li Jibreel wa Mikael. And who was an enemy to Jibreel and Mikael? Allah revealed that about them. So the Prophet said there's nothing more hated. Doesn't mean they don't have other things they hate, but this is one of the most hated things. When the Muslims say Ameen and the Salam that you use to get out of the Salah. Huh?
Yeah.
So when you see some people opposing that, know it's because these people that have some aqidah from the Yahud, in most cases, that person that started that sect, he was a Yahudi that infiltrated it, took Shahada, became Muslim to get in the ranks to drop this evil and to make a sect within the Muslim community. Alhamdulillah. What time is now?
37.
One more point, then we'll stop and pray.
The chapter is done. We finished it.
The chapter is done. Which Bible is that?
That's the... One second. Ta'meen. We finished it. So the next one is قراءة صلى الله عليه وسلم بعد الفاتحة.
طيب إن شاء الله نختم هنا إن شاء الله ونصلي عصر نعود إن شاء الله صلى على نبينا محمد.
Finish, right?